there he goes.
Tomorrow, I'll be back with you. I'll give you an update on America's best paid family medical leave program that is now a week into it. And at that time, I'll take all your questions. Thank you all.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Wow. All right. Thank you for asking.
You said you were going to take questions. Why didn't you?
Thank you all. We'll be back tomorrow. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Rich Lowry of National Review, and that's Tim Walz exiting the gubernatorial race in Minnesota. He was going to run for what he called a historic third term. All that is off now. His political career has been blown to bits by the enormous welfare scandal in Minnesota. This might be the most pathetic fall from grace we've seen in the modern era from a vice presidential nominee. A year ago, he had some chance of being the next vice president of the United States. Maybe not a 50% chance, something less than that, but a chance. Now, a year from now, he's going to be gone, no longer governor of Minnesota, and no one is going to think about him, I predict, ever again. And we shouldn't be shocked by this because he was always a sham and a fabrication created by the Democratic media complex that came up with this idea right before he was selected by Kamala Harris, that he was cool with it, a great communicator, someone who had a real connection to rural white voters. And none of that was ever true, but they created this fiction. Here he was on the podcast Pod Save America before he was selected as Harris's VP.
Hey, John, thanks for having me. Good to be back on.
Great to have you. Governor Walz, no disrespect here, but a matter of days ago, you were basically unknown on the national stage. Now a good chunk of the internet knows what rides you went on at the state fair last year. Where the have you been?
What? Doing my job out here. I'm just plugging away and
just
plugging away and hibbing. Yeah, just doing the work. So
vice president gets dangled in front of you. Suddenly you're like one of the best messengers in the party. Where we needed you.
Yeah, I was coaching those football teams, plugging away.
Now, none of this was true. Every party, to be sure, has its own propaganda, but it's crucially important for the party not to fall prey to its own propaganda, not to believe in its own propaganda. And what happened here was that Tim Walz, out of nothing, was built up into something in a matter of weeks before Kamala Harris picked him, and all the Democrats and a lot of the media believed in him or pretended to believe in him. And slowly, over time, on the national stage, everything they portrayed him as being proved to be false. This was predictable. It should have been knowable beforehand, but on the national stage, it became undeniable. He was always an urban cosmopolitan's idea of someone who would have appeal to rural voters, but he didn't. He didn't know how to handle a shotgun. He played Madden with AOC, and then whoever was running his X account, messed up the football lingo, talking about AOC running a pick six, which makes no sense. He called Republicans weird, but the way he handled himself was very weird. The jazz hands and all the rest of it. And then he absolutely got run over in the Republican vice presidential debate by J.D. Vance, completely outclassed by him. And even Kamala Harris said in her book that she was disappointed in that performance. When Kamala Harris thinks you're unimpressive, that means you are really unimpressive. The other problem is that he was so far left. Now, when he represented Congress in a reddish district, he was relatively, underline that word, relatively moderate. But as soon as he becomes governor with the Democratic legislature, it's Katie bar the door with the swing to the left. Radical education, transgender and abortion policies, all sorts of new mandates and taxes and enormous amounts of new spending. It's very telling in that exit press conference or press statement that we saw at the beginning of this video. What is he doing? He's touting yet another new government program, this time paid family leave. But ultimately, it was the scandal that did him in. This level of corruption and fraud in any state would weigh on an incumbent governor, but Minnesota has a Scandinavian type political culture. It means it's friendly to government activism and high levels of welfare spending, but also means it has a clean, relatively corruption-free political culture based on high levels of social trust. And then here we have this maddening, truly historic level of fraud, largely perpetrated by Somali immigrants. And this is just a gut punch to Minnesota's self-image. This is a shock to the system in Minnesota. And Tim Walz was always behind the curve, minimizing it, coming up with excuses, and attacking the people exposing this scandal to the very end. Just the other day on X, he was calling Nick Shirley, the YouTuber who visited all those fraudulent daycare centers, a delusional conspiracy theorist. In his written statement exiting the race, he continued with this kind of attack. He said, quote, "I won't mince words. Donald Trump and his allies want to make our state a colder, meaner place. They want to poison our people against each other, and ultimately they want to take away much of what makes Minnesota the best place in America to raise a family." Sounds terrible, but why has Minnesota been under such pressure recently? Because people came into the state and just robbed it in a historic fashion, and even Walz has to admit as much in his exit statement. He says, quote, "For the last several years, an organized group of criminals have sought to take advantage of our state's generosity." No kidding. Now, clearly, Tim Walz isn't running again because there's some significant chance that he would lose. But the fig leaf, his cover story, is that he can't afford to run again because it would distract attention from him dealing with the fraud scandal and pushing back against the cynics supposedly taking advantage of it. But the fraud scandal now is largely in the hands of prosecutors. The time to deal with it was years ago, when there are all sorts of warning signs, when every light was flashing red about the scale of what was happening, and Tim Walz didn't take it seriously enough, didn't do anything about it, or didn't do nearly enough about it. And it's telling and kind of comforting that this is apparently intolerable, even in a blue state like Minnesota. So farewell, Tim Walz. We won't miss you. I'm Rich Lowry. Over and out.